Hello, this is Shan Chandrasekhar welcoming you to another delightful part of our series, The Achievers. We featured some of the finest people from around the world in this series, and we are very honored to present Honorable Harinder Takhar, former Cabinet Minister, Province of Ontario, and currently a great entrepreneur, extraordinarily successful in his business, and we are very honored to have him in the program with us. Harinder, what a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
The last time we featured you, we discussed a lot about your political career. We'll touch base a little bit on that as well. But today I want to start off. Last time we never talked about your academic achievements. You know, they were extremely impressive because you were born in a small town in Punjab. You are a trailblazer when it comes to your educational background. You did your bachelor's degree in English and economics and your master's in economics and political science. And after that, of course, CMA and CPA. And you are a certified professional accountant as well. You've been holding some very high positions as Vice President of Finance, Chief Financial Officer of private companies and public companies as well. Extraordinary experience. And of course, you've got an MBA as well, and you were associated with Rotmans and Schulich as well. What an impressive background. So tell me about your early days in school, in education, and your parents.
My father and my mother, I think the one thing they gave to us was that you have to study. This is the best thing you can ever do in your life. This is your best asset. And I firmly believe we passed that on to our kids.
Wow.
And we said, you know, we might not be able to give you anything, but we can give you the best education that we can afford. And we did that. And I think my father especially, I think the one thing that he really gave to me especially was he said, you can do anything, you know, have confidence in your abilities to do it. And that meant a lot for me and in my career for any success that I achieved.
You know, you had the state merit scholarship at the undergraduate level, at your bachelor's degree level. In spite of having those kind of accolades, was it difficult to get recognition in this country when you first came?
It was very difficult, and I think it's still very difficult to a certain extent for people maybe who come from a very village background. I think the issue also is whether you can speak English or not, and your credentials are not recognized. I think the governments have made effort over the number of years, but still this issue remains.
You know, it's incredible because recognition of foreign credentials have been a subject that has been discussed by practically every government, both at the federal, provincial and municipal level. During your tenure as a cabinet minister, you took a keen interest in trying to solve this issue as well. Tell us about some of the initiatives that at that time, when you were a cabinet minister, your government took some initiatives. What were they with respect to recognizing the credentials of foreign trained professionals?
You know, it might be very hard to recognize what we did that time compared to what is happening right now. There's a labor shortage right now. Anybody can get a job in the field they want to. But I think at that time, the biggest issue was when you come from a different country with the different qualifications, and when you come to this country, the qualification doesn't get recognized, your experience doesn't get recognized. So some of the things that we tried to do was actually made it easier for people to have their qualifications improved. You know, so we basically came up with some sort of approaches that if you take these kind of courses over a period of time, your qualification will be recognized in the field that you are. But I think the most important thing that we did was actually worked with the large corporations to give people the chance to at least work with them for a short period of time. So once they have the Canadian experience, they can work with them for 4 to 6 months, and then they can go out and look for a job. Even if this was not a permanent job, but it was like sort of a transition into the career that you wanted.
You know, you were a trailblazer when you entered politics because you were first elected in 2003. Again, you were re-elected in 2007, if I remember, and then 2011, and again in 2014. My God, 3-4 times you had tremendous majority winning. You were the first South Asian cabinet minister in the history of Ontario to be appointed as a full minister. Tell us about that first move.
Actually, I was not even interested in politics to start with, that I was not a member of any party at all when I had my professional career. Then I got involved into the education system at the Peel District School Board level. I got involved, became the chair of the Craig Valley Hospital. I think that what the things that were going on at that time, there were cuts in education, there were cuts in the healthcare system that sort of encouraged me to get involved in the politics. So I ran for first time in 2003. In October, the election happened, and I decided to go for the Liberal Party at that point of time. And a couple of days later, I was appointed to the cabinet as a Minister of Transportation, and that was the first South Asian appointment ever. But I never felt that I got this position because I was a South Asian. I thought actually I had the qualification and experience for that position. But it was a tough slot to start with. Politics is very different than working in a business, and I had my own challenges, and the challenges was if somebody asked me a question, I wanted to answer, and then one of my colleagues one day said to me, he said, "Why are you answering questions?" I said, "Because they asked the question." He said, "This is a question period, not answer period."
Wow.
And that really came a light in my mind and said, okay, this politics is very different. In a way, the politics is a blood game. So you have to be very careful what you say. Every word that you say is interpreted differently, and people can come to their own conclusions, whether there is a fact behind it or not.
Interesting.
So it was, for me, it was a big adjustment in the beginning. Yes, I later on got used to it. You have to have a thick skin, and that was a big issue for me to start with. Everything I took personally, I took it home, and I discussed it in my family, and this is what happened today. But then eventually you get used to it, and you learn the ropes.
You were appointed to the Executive Council soon after you were elected as a Member of Parliament. So what was the role of the Executive Council?
So in order to become a minister, you have to be a part of the Executive Council. So the Executive Council, in the other way, is really the government of any province or at the federal level. So you have to be appointed to the Executive Council, then you are assigned a job, which is your minister of whatever portfolio it is.
Interesting. Your first appointment was Minister of Transport. So tell us about the significant changes that you thought you made during your tenure at that time.
So the couple of things that I really would like to talk about is, the people always relate to me with the HOV lanes. So this was first steps that we took in terms of the HOV lanes. At that time, people felt I made the HOV lanes because I wanted to take the HOV lanes. But that was not the case, and I think people appreciate right now. And I think the whole idea behind was to make sure that if we can give privilege to the people who have other passengers with them, then people will start start pooling the resources together. It worked to a certain extent. I think the issue with that is whether the enforcement is there or not.
That was better for the environment.
It's better for the environment. It's always better for the environment if you can take some cars off the road. The second, I think, the initiative that I took was basically this whole Metrolink was actually was more or less started when I was the Minister of Transportation.
You were the first minister for small business in the history of Ontario. They've always said in this country, small business is the pillar of the industry in this country. Of course, the very large businesses employ a lot of people, but the economy is being driven by a huge number of small businesses across the country. So tell us about it.
So the government always used to have a Minister of Industry or Minister of Economic Development, but never had a Ministry of Small Business.
Right.
And small business, first there's no definition of small business. What is small business is? So that was, we had to, deal with that. What is really a small business? Is it the number of employees determine the small business, or it's the size determines the small business? So then we came up with the definition that anybody who has about 50 employees, it should be considered as a small business. And then we also came up with the revenue definition as well at some point. But I think it's still undefined what small business is. Is it one person, or is 50 people, or is 100 people, or whatever. But small business are 80% of the total business in any province or in any country. And they create more jobs in total than the large businesses do.
Wow.
I think most of the people who start their own business, they struggle. So they become very innovative in their approach, how they manage business and so on. So it is absolutely essential to have businesses that are small, and there are people who are entrepreneurs, because that's the culture you have to create if you want the economic well-being of the society in the long haul.
You've held several portfolios, which is very impressive, and you became the Minister of Government Services in 2009, if I remember. So what does that entail?
So the Government Services Department actually consists of, you do all the procurement, you are in charge of all the public service,
Wow.
you are in charge of all the IT in the government. And and also I had all the government services, like the Service Ontario and all that was also under that portfolio. And I'm very proud of the fact that what we did with how we provide services, Ontario government services, under one banner now, that actually took place. It started a little bit earlier than me, but I think a lot of consolidation took place when I was in charge of that ministry. So that ministry actually governs, sort of determines the policies that the government needs to follow in a way.
Wow. In 2013, you became the chairman of the management board. So what exactly was the function of the management board?
So the management board actually has a controllership function. The Minister of Finance determines the budget.
Right.
And the management board basically makes sure that all the departments that are spending money actually complies with whatever the budget has been determined.
I see.
So any new initiative comes to the management board first before it goes to the cabinet.
Wow. What
So it's actually is a treasury board, treasury and a management board.
What are we looking at when you talk of government services, the total budget for that matter for a province, of Ontario, which is the largest province in the country?
I mean, it's billions of dollars. I mean, if you just take an example, just the healthcare budget alone is over $70-80 billion.
Wow.
I think maybe we're pretty close to 100 billion right now. I wouldn't be surprised.
In 1996, you accompanied former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien to travel on an international trade mission. So tell us about that.
So that time I actually was not in the government. So we have our own business. And so as a result, I traveled with Mr. Chrétien, and we went to several countries. We went to Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, India, Pakistan, and I think the whole idea was to promote Canadian trade with these countries. And it's very interesting experience. When we went to India, people signed the MOUs and so on. And when we reached Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto was the prime minister. I think the first question she asked, how much business was done in India? She said, I want to do more than that. And she made every effort to do that. So I think that the trip was very successful for Prime Minister Chrétien at that point of time.
Well, that was not the only delegation. You have run a very successful delegation where you had bilateral trade agreements done between India and Canada, and that was with Premier Dalton McGuinty that you accompanied him. So tell us about that mission.
So I went with the Premier twice, with Premier McGuinty twice to India, and I think again the whole purpose was to promote the trade between India and Canada, and especially Ontario. And that business was very successful. We met a lot of very good business people, and also met the business leaders and the political leaders as well to showcase Ontario to Indian business people.
You spoke about Dalton McGuinty, and I remember in the last interview when you came, this is why for us, achievers then and now makes a lot of significance. I asked you a question about Dalton McGuinty's unexpected sudden resignation, and you commented on that because it was a surprise even for you at that time, I remember. Just look at what you said to me at that time. Let's take a look at it. Dalton McGuinty had done a commendable job for a number of years, but his resignation was fairly sudden. So tell us a little bit about that
Well,
process.
it came as a surprise to me, Sean, as well. Actually, I was in BC the day he decided to resign. So when I actually landed at the Pearson airport that evening, I had so many emails from my staff telling me that there's a news conference at this point and you need to be in the caucus and so on. So it came as a surprise to me as well. And I really want to say thanks to him for his years of service to this province and to this country, and he has done a wonderful job, especially making a huge investment in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. I think he has basically changed, I will say, the shape of Ontario in the last 9 years as a premier, 16 years as an MPP, and I think that says a lot about him.
I'm sure that'll bring you pleasant memories. If you recall, at that time I had asked you a question because frankly you were running for the leadership to be the Premier of Ontario at that time, and you had a very impressive plan, if I remember. I want you to see what you talked about the plan, and then I want to come back and talk to you about whether some of them have been implemented at all. This province is Canada's one of the most prosperous, and from a population point of view, it's the largest province. Now, you as a candidate for the premiership of this province, you've come up with a plan, I believe, in terms of a business plan, and I heard it's like a 100-day plan, I believe. Tell us about this.
Sean, I really wanted to say three things what made me run. First, I wanted to make sure that actually I was absolutely committed to this province and also spending maybe another 10 years of my life in politics. The second thing I wanted to make sure was that I had enough support in the community to make this happen. And the third is, in my own mind, I said to myself, I need to know in my own mind what is the vision of this province should look like and what I need to do if I become the premier of this province. So when I launched my leadership bid, I actually announced the 100-day Jobs and Prosperity Plan. And let me just talk briefly about the key aspects of this plan. In my mind, the challenges that are facing this province right now are, number one, we have a huge deficit of $14 billion. The second is, since 2008, the whole world, including Ontario and Canada, have gone through a very, very severe recession. So I find it very difficult when I see our young people who graduated from there, they're not getting jobs. So I thought to myself that I need to focus on jobs. So the two key aspects of my plan are jobs and elimination of deficit. So the number one proposal that I had was that I will eliminate the deficit in this province 1 year early than what is being planned. So right now, our government says that the deficit will be eliminated by 2017-18, and I'm proposing I will do it a year early by 2016-17. The reason for that is we want to make sure that we don't leave the burden of deficit and which gets into debt on our kids and our grandkids. So we need to get out of that, because that will help us to encourage more investment to this province. So as related to this is, how did you get out of the deficit? Deficit is that you need to look at both sides of the equation. How did you increase the revenue? You're a businessman. And how did you decrease the expenses as well? So on the revenue side, this is what I'm proposing, that we need to create an Ontario Small Business Development Agency. That this small business development agency should have a holistic approach to small business. They should provide them with the capital, but more importantly, they should help them to open new global markets, and they should help them with the increase in productivity and those related issues. And we should also focus on the innovation, because without innovation, you can't go anywhere. I mean, you look at this studio, what you have done with this, to me, it speaks about the innovation in Ontario's economy. Okay. That's exactly what we need to do with other businesses as well, so that they can succeed not only in Ontario, but globally as well. And in order to do that, I also feel that we need to encourage people who create jobs in Ontario. If you create more jobs, so what I'm proposing is that every new employee that is created by an employer, a new job that is created by an employer, we should give them 10% credit up to a $50,000 salary to a maximum of $5,000. And if they cannot use that year, they should be able to carry it forward for another 5 years. So what that really means is that we should really encourage people who create jobs in Ontario and not ship jobs outside Ontario. So that is the other part of my plan. Third proposal that I have is I'm proposing that the businesses should get 30% tax credit if they sponsor a student to a university recognized, Ontario University recognized program, either at the college level or the university level. So if somebody sponsors a student to a certain program which is offered by our university or college, they should be able to get 30% tax credit. And again, if they can't use it, it should be able to take it forward for 5 years. I'm also proposing that we should actually give experience to new immigrants in the Ontario Public Service for 6 months. If they are professionals, they can't get a job because it's always the experience and recognition of the qualification is always an issue. And I'm proposing the same thing for our youth as well. If youth are qualified, they can't get a job, at least we should offer them the opportunity to work for the government for a while so they can actually have on their resume the experiences.
Well, tell me about some of those initiatives that you had suggested. They were very concrete and very productive. Has that ever been implemented by any of the following governments at either the provincial or federal level?
I think one of the initiatives that I suggested was regarding the funding of the infrastructure. I said we should have infrastructure bonds.
Right.
And that, in a sense, was adopted by the government that came after by the Kathleen government.
I see.
And but they changed the name. Rather than calling the infrastructure bonds, they called it something else because they wanted to make their own, but that doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the question is, we need to fund infrastructure in this province, in this country, and if we can find a better way to do it, I think that's the way it's required. I think the other item that was really important to me, I still feel is really important that the government should adopt. Infrastructure should be a long-term plan. It should not be that one government comes with the infrastructure plan, the other government comes in and changes the infrastructure plan. Infrastructure plan should be a long-term plan approved by the legislature of the province, and the government should not be able to change it because just the party changed. We need to build infrastructure in this province if we're going to prosper in the long haul. And that maybe has not been adopted because, when the new governments come, they want to do the infrastructure in the areas where they got elected versus the government that was previously there.
What was the motivation behind your emigrating to Canada, and why did you choose Canada?
I think to a certain extent, maybe it's a chance. Rather than planning on my part. Actually, I had a pretty good job in India. I was a bank officer in India. At that time, bank officer job was highly regarded in India. But then my uncle was here and he sent a sponsorship, and then I got the immigration pretty quickly. And honestly, I had a hard time when I came in here. My qualifications wouldn't get recognized. I wanted to go back, like it's typical immigrant experience. But I guess it's good that I stuck around and was able to achieve the things which I may not have been able to do in India.
J.R. describes your wife as a personification of simplicity and highly dignified. Tell me about the role that she played when you had to move from private sector into politics. During that time, you had to leave the business in the hands of somebody in your family, and your wife took it over. And from what I heard, she did a superb job. Tell us about that period.
She did a better job than me, that's for sure. But I think no one person can do everything in the company. I think it's the team behind her that helped her to succeed. But one thing I learned when I came back, that she had done a better job, so I stayed out of her way and let her do what she does best. And then I sort of created my own niche by growing the company in a little different direction. So she manages what we call our transportation group, which is our core business. Along with Nitin, who is here today, they manage that business. What I have done is I sort of said, okay, that business is taken care of in a better way. We always say it's on a remote control. It does really well. But we sort of expanded into the medical side of the business. So we had a little niche there before. We were making washing equipment for research and hospitals. So we then I got involved. Then we bought another company that does actually sterilizers, and our sterilizer used by Pfizer for COVID-19.
Oh, wow.
And then we bought another company that also does washing equipment, but does it for the life sciences.
Wow.
And then recently we bought another company that actually is into the e-commerce business, also into the medical equipment business. So sort of we put the whole group together, and it's now called the Spire Group. So we have moved into a little bit into two businesses. One is the transportation equipment, and the other is the medical equipment.
Wow.
So I look after a little bit more the medical side of the business, and she looks after the transportation. So we stayed away from each other in a way.
Fantastic. You know, these mergers and acquisitions is something that's very complex usually. And is it because of your extraordinary knowledge in both business and as a chartered accountant? Is that the one that gave you the confidence to sort of explore this area of mergers and acquisitions?
So I have been involved in acquisitions when I was the vice president of finance with other companies. So I had a little bit of exposure, but you always learn. You know, learning never stops. So every acquisition is different. Every acquisition has its own challenges, and so on and so forth. But I always wanted to make sure that, you know, we buy companies that have some sort of synergies with our existing business. Sometimes you are successful, sometimes you're not successful. If I sit here and say to you, every acquisition we did was successful, it's not the case. But you know, the key is you learn from your mistakes, and business is, you know, always challenging in a way.
Absolutely. In every business, you take calculated risks.
Right.
What, you know, you've got an extraordinarily impressive background of both the private sector and being in business for yourself as an entrepreneur. You've also been in the public sector and as a cabinet minister with the government as well. What is the main difference being in business as compared to running the government?
I think running your own business, you can do whatever you want to do. You can have your own title, whatever you want to do. But also, in my mind, is you know, business requires certain discipline, and it has challenges all the time. And if somebody asks me, you know, how I can get into the business, I always say to them is, yeah, you can get into the business whenever you want, but make sure that you are able to sleep at night, right? If you can't sleep at night, it's not worth getting into the business. Yeah. The government is very different. The government is very different. You know, to a certain extent, you have flexibility, but on the other side, your hands are also tight. What you can do or not do. But government experience is very valuable experience. At the end of the day, governments are going to be here. They're going to impact your life one way or the other. So it's better to be there and learn how the government works. It's better to be on the table and understand how the decisions are made and how they can impact your life. So it was a great experience for 15 years. I cherished it to the fullest extent. I had my ups and downs in political career, but I will not change it for anything else.
It's wonderful. Was there a lack of privacy that you felt when you moved from the private sector into the government to be a cabinet minister? Were you under the microscope? You felt at times, you know, clustered for that matter? You know?
I think the beauty of our system is that you are accountable. Right? If you're not accountable, you should not be in politics.
Right.
Yes, you make mistakes. There's no question about it. But the point is, we live in this country. You can meet a minister, you can meet a premier, you can meet the prime minister, you can meet the governor general. That's the beauty of our system. For that, if you have to pay the price, that you have to be accountable, you have to be criticized, I will do it gladly again.
Wonderful. So you feel delegation of responsibility and accountability go side by side?
Absolutely. And it should. And I think if the system is not accountable, if people can't ask you the questions, I don't think it's a democratic system.
You went beyond the call of duty in terms of your charitable activities and participation in important charitable institutions. If I remember in those days, because I used to be associated with the United Way of Greater Toronto under the chairmanship of Dave Mackay, who is the president of RBC, the Royal Bank. He did some tremendous work, leadership, and we all followed. And it was a very successful campaign that we had done. But the Peel Region United Way had some serious problems. And when you got involved and you became the chairman of board, you were extremely articulate in organizing two major functions, and you turned it around. So tell us about the period.
The United Way of Peel went through very difficult times, and the entire board had to resign. So they put in the whole new board, and this was the first time for me to get involved with the United Way. So when we got together, the new board, everybody say, who wants to be there? Who wants to lead this board at this point of time? Actually, everybody was reluctant because it was literally bankrupt. I said, okay, somebody has to do it. I will do it. Yeah. And but at the end of the day, I think we had a good team together, and we were able to do good fundraising. Hazel McCallion, who was our mayor at that time in Mississauga, was very helpful, even convincing governments to help out a little bit here and there. But at the end of the day, I think the community came together, and we were able to do two successful fundraising campaigns, and the United Way of Peel got out of the problems that they had, and were able to serve the community. I mean, the whole purpose of United Way is to serve the people who need help.
Absolutely. You were also the chairman of the board and the board of governors at Credit Valley Hospital, one of the finest hospitals in the province of Ontario. So tell us about your role there.
The healthcare is so important. I think if you have health, you got everything. If you don't have health, you don't have anything. And so you want to make sure that the community hospitals are able to deliver health in a way the community expects. When you need it, the healthcare system should be there to help you out. And the Credit Valley Hospital was one of the good hospitals. I got onto the board and served on different committees, including being the treasurer of that board for a long time. Then became the chair for a short while before I got elected to become the member of Provincial Parliament and became a minister. So what we did in there was we wanted to advocate on behalf of the residents of Mississauga that these are the requirements for the residents and this is what kind of the funding is required. And one of the reasons for me to get into the politics was that there was not enough funding available at that time to help the local residents. So that is in a way somehow pushed me towards the politics at that point of time.
Interesting. You were also in charge of the treasury, at the hospital. During that time, did you have substantial interaction with Lynn, for that matter?
I think the Lynn didn't even exist at that point.
I see.
The Lynn came long times after that. The funding was done directly by the government. I think we used to have what they called regional ministry of offices.
I see.
Who did more or less the funding. But more or less the funding came directly from the ministry. You have to advocate what the needs were. At that time, Tony Clement was the Minister of Health.
I see.
And because the election came in pretty quickly at that time, the government decided, okay, they were not going to fund the hospital this year in order to keep their budgets in control. But the needs never disappear. Right? When there is a need for health care, people need health, they need their issues addressed from the health point of view. So the need is there. From that point of view, whether the government funds or not, it's not that the people will not stop coming to the hospitals. And that is what more or less sort of forced me to get into the politics.
Punjabi community is very vibrant here in this country. So tell me about this relationship between Canada and the state of Punjab.
The Punjabis always have been, they are all over the world. You can find them almost in every country.
Right.
So the state, the Punjabis are so much involved with the state of Punjab in a way because they still own property, they still own land, still they feel that the Punjab should do better than what they have done, and so on and so forth. But then there are other people who think that they should have a little bit more freedom in this context. But I think we should be Indians first, in my view. I mean, we live in India, we are Indians, and India comes first, and Punjab is a part of the India.
You were involved in a company dealing with environmental issues before global warming became a popular subject to even discuss, way back then. So tell me about your conscious decision to be involved in the environmental issues in a corporation.
So I was actually the executive vice president for Earth and Environmental Group, which was basically involved in some of the environmental issues. We did phase 1, phase 2, the testing to make sure that there were no environmental issues in the industries. But I mean, the environment is so important. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if you want to breathe a good air, you want to have a good water, you want to make sure that you protect them. And I'm so glad that the governments have finally realized that they need to protect the environment to provide good living, good, healthy environment to the people.
You were also involved in a very successful engineering company called Agra Industries. Tell us about it.
So Agra Industries is actually it was a large Canadian company which was engaged in different phases of the businesses. They used to own the duty-free shops in the Canadian market, even in Toronto. They were also building power plants. They were also in civil construction. They were environmental businesses, and they also built power plants in India as well. So it was a large public company that did that. Then eventually, the company was sold to a British company. It still exists. It's called AMAC now, and which basically stands for Agro Manenko Group, and is still one of the largest infrastructure companies in Canada.
Interesting. You were also founder, president, chairman of the board of the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce. So tell us about that.
So there was always Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce. So we thought, we needed to have a little bit of participation of the Punjabi community into it.
Sure.
So we started the International Punjabi Chamber of Commerce. And we did a couple of functions in the beginning, which were very successful, and even in a way were better than Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce at that point of time. And the kind of the people that we honored at that point, Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce honored them years later. But I think it didn't go anywhere after I got into the politics. I think more or less it just stopped because I was not involved in this anymore. People have still come back to me and so many times now and say, let's start this again and move on with this. So it was successful for a couple of years.
You as an entrepreneur, you've got a tremendous background, great success. Chalmers Group is a highly respected company, and it's a division of KST Industries. And you've got 5 manufacturing plants, both in Canada and the United States. Please describe your operation.
So basically we have, we started this business in 1992. This is our 30th year.
Wow.
And
congratulations.
Thank you. And we started with buying a very small company that was very unprofitable at that point of time. And we have been very lucky that we were able to turn around the company and generated the growth that the company has been able to do it. And our our basic business is our transportation equipment. We make suspension systems for heavy duty trucks.
Wow.
Which is off-road, like the construction trucks, logging trucks, airport refuelers, and so on and so. And we supply it directly to truck OEMs. That is our business, and it's just in time, which means the trucks are being constructed on the line when our suspension goes in there. And if we miss our shipments, there are fines imposed in it, and we have to supply a quality product and so on. So we are very proud of the fact that we have done a wonderful job supplying very quality products. Our defect is like 0.001 or something like that. So it's very good.
Congratulations.
And we won the best award from the largest truck manufacturers last year for being the best supplier. So we are very proud of that, and that has been the basic of our business. Then what we did try to do was, in order to make sure that the business is sustainable and profitable in the long haul, we did some backward integration, bought a company in Erie, Pennsylvania. And then we decided that we need to do a little bit of diversification, then bought a company in Vancouver, which is in the medical products and does the washing equipment and supplies to the hospital and research labs, and also does the OR, operating room equipment as well. Then when I got out of the politics, that I realized in order for the medical side of the business to grow, we need to do a little bit more. We felt that in order to sell washing equipment, we need to have a sterilizer, so we bought a sterilizer company.
Wow.
And that plant is in Great Bend, Kansas, but their head office is in Florida. And a couple of years later, we bought a company in outside Buffalo, which also does washing equipment, but supplies to the life sciences side.
Wow.
And then we also do a little bit of pathology equipment as well. And then we bought an e-commerce business, which is also medical equipment. It sort of puts everything together under a company called Spire Group, which is headed by a group president who's based in Florida.
Excellent. You know, you've always been, advocating a job creation. So in your own enterprise, obviously you've created quite a few jobs. Approximately how many people in all these companies put together, both in USA and Canada?
So I have a couple of other investments as well. We have an investment in a food company. We have an investment in a printing company. If I look at all of them, I will say maybe over 1,000 at this point.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You know, in your experience, doing business in Canada and doing business in the United States, is there a difference?
There's definitely a difference of culture. Okay, the number one thing is, there's a lot of availability of very good qualified people in Canada. And that is really our strength. If I want to hire an engineer, I can hire 100 engineers here right now. If you want to hire a finance person, you can hire a finance person. It's a little bit difficult, we find, getting that in the US.
I see.
Especially in small towns.
I see.
The skill level is not available. That has been our challenge. And in certain ways, it's easier to do business in US. You hire people. If you don't like, you can let them go. That is the capitalist system. But here, I think, it's a give and take at the end of the day. If you have a good people here, then there are certain rules and regulations that you have to comply with.
There's been great write-ups about you in the Canadian Living magazine, Mississauga Business Journal, and several other articles, have been published about you. How do you feel when you receive these awards in terms of the recognition that the community is bestowing on you?
I think the best recognition you can ever get is from your own community. And so whenever you get recognized by your own community for some of the work that you have done, I think that gives you a great feeling that you have contributed back to the community, and also contributed back to the country that you have chosen. This is where we got everything, right? I came in here when I was like 23 years old. I built my whole business here. My kids were born here. We lived here forever. So I think it's not that you just take one way, but you also have to contribute back to the community. It's so important for you to do it. Otherwise, you can never build a strong community unless you can contribute to the communities.
The huge Indian student population, along with other international students coming to this country, and from what I understand, from what I heard, over 250,000 students have come, I believe, to do either community college or post-secondary education. Some of them have gone to reputable institutions like properly recognized universities, and like Toronto University, U of T or York or Kingston or McGill or UBC, across the country, great universities. And some have gone to recognized community colleges as well, like Sheridan and Ryerson. Now, it's, of course, it's a different name. And Seneca College, these are all, Centennial, these are all reputable institutions. But unfortunately, some of them have gone to private institutions which are not really accredited, and they're having a lot of problems. Recently, I saw a documentary. So what do you think of the plight of the international students in this country, and what can be done to rectify that or help them?
I think the basic question in my mind first is, do we need students in this country? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, we need young people. Right. Because our population is aging, and right. We need people who are young and can support the population that is aging. We also need workforce. We have a shortage of workforce. So we need people who can come to this country and contribute it. So we need young people. Then the second question becomes is, what kind of the people do we need? Mm-hmm. From immigration point of view and from the students' point of view. I think all the students that come to this country who goes to good institutions and get good education is a great asset for Canada and also for themselves as well, because they can make a good career. But the issue becomes is when the students do not have enough information to come to this country and they are being exploited.
Very sad.
Right? And so people open up, the colleges, I wouldn't say they're not accredited, but maybe they are registered with the university, with the Ministry of Education or Ministry of Higher Education and so on. But the problem is what kind of the education is being provided. If you are just giving them the registration for them to get the immigration to come to the country and they will not be able to acquire the education that they need to be successful, then I think it's really not very good for them or for the country. And I think some of that exploitation is happening and we cannot ignore it. And the other is when the students come at a very young age, they have lot of other issues that they face in this country, and that result in some sort of exploitation by the employers, leads to some sort of exploitation by these so-called not reliable institutions.
When I saw the documentary, I was very touched that some parents are selling their entire life savings. They're selling their land, they're selling their house. And education is an extremely important part of, every parent wishes their child to be well educated. And they'll sacrifice their entire life to do that. And some of them are very grateful. The students who come here, they really reciprocate that love and affection towards their parents, and they want to be very responsible. And occasionally, some of them have been disappointed because this country is wonderful, they welcome them, they paid huge tuition fees compared to the local Canadians. They're paying a lot more, but there's no accommodation for them, there is no infrastructure support. So is there a flaw in our planning in this country with respect to the accommodation of these students? You just issue the visas, but then there is no real concrete plan behind as to how to help them, get settled.
I think there's no integration in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
First is we need to provide knowledge to the parents in India in terms of what kind of the skills are demanded in India and what kind of the education they need to get into. We need to also provide them some sort of information in terms of where they can settle, what kind of the information do they need in order to integrate into the society. So, but I will say the travel agents or people in India are basically saying you can go to Canada, this is what you have to do in order to get to that, we can get you the admission and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So the students come in. I actually was coming from India 1 year and I met the students in the plane. I said, where are you going to be? He said, I got admitted into the Centennial College. I said, where are you going to live? He said, in Hamilton. He didn't even know how far is Hamilton from Centennial College for him to commute every day.
Wow.
I think that basic information is required to be provided to them. The second is the government should not just, the governments or the, I will say even the academic institution should not make that just a business. Yeah, it has become a big business. It's like $7-8 billion business. And I was one of the biggest advocates to say that we need to bring students to this country. Even when I was a minister, I said Australia is doing it, why are we not doing it? But then we need to have some sort of a plan that if we want to bring students here, where are we going to keep them? How are we going to integrate into the society? We don't want them to all go to Surrey or Brampton or Mississauga or wherever. They need to become a key part of the Canadian society. In order to become a key part of the Canadian society, they need to integrate with the people here. And when they're coming for education, they should get education.
Several years ago, when I did an interview with you, I distinctly remember you paid a lot of emphasis on both education and entrepreneurship and job opportunities for the youngsters. I want you to just listen to what you said at that time.
I'm proposing that the businesses should get 30% tax credit if they sponsor a student to a university recognized, Ontario University recognized program, either at the college level or the university level. So if somebody sponsors a student to a certain program which is offered by our university or college, they should be able to get 30% tax credit. And again, if they can't use it, it should be able to take it forward for 5 years. I think there are two aspects to that proposal. One is it shifts the burden from the students for the fees to the business. The second aspect is that the businesses can actually tell students what kind of the courses they need to take in order to actually get a job in the businesses. So it does two things from my point of view.
At that time, we discussed about the job opportunities for youngsters, and today we're talking about international students coming in here, doing part-time work, and their plight. It takes me on to another area, is between the private sector and your political career. Which one would you prefer?
I think it depends. It depends upon what part of your life you are in. I think I would have never done politics when my kids were small, because I just wanted to make sure that I was with them in their lives to a certain extent as much as I could. But I think my timing was okay because the kids were grown up. I got into politics, but I would never trade politics with anything else. As I said before, I think it's absolutely essential to get some government. It is essential to find out how the governments work, because they're going to impact your life. The business life is great. It has its own challenges, but I enjoy it. I don't do it for the sake of money. Honestly, I don't. We have never taken money out of a business. Never.
Interesting. You won an award several years ago from the, I think it was the Institute of Chartered Accountants or Management Accountants, and for your outstanding community service. Tell us about that award.
So I was part of the CMA, Certified Management Accountants at that time, and the CMA used to honor their members who has done some good community work, and they did recognize the work that had done for the United Way and also for the Grand Valley Hospital, and that's where that award came from.
You also won the Pioneers Award, so tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, I have been here now over 45 years, right? In a way, you become pioneer if you do certain things. And I think that Pioneer Award was given to me by...
was the Entrepreneur of the Year.
Yeah, Entrepreneur of the Year Award. And I also got the Seva Award from the Centennial Foundation as well. Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce, I got an award from them as well.
And the Peel, United Way gave you an appreciation award as well.
Yeah, that's right. So I think after being involved in so many things, you do get awards once in a while here and there.
You had the state merit scholarship at the undergraduate level, at your bachelor's degree level. In spite of having those kind of accolades, was it difficult to get recognition in this country when you first came?
It was very difficult, and I think it's still very difficult to a certain extent for people maybe who come from a very village background. I think the issue also is whether you can speak English or not, and your credentials are not recognized. I think the governments have made effort over the number of years, but still this issue remains.
You know, it's incredible because recognition of foreign credentials have been a subject that has been discussed by practically every government, both at the federal, provincial and municipal level. During your tenure as a cabinet minister, you took a keen interest in trying to solve this issue as well. Tell us about some of the initiatives that at that time, when you were a cabinet minister, your government took some initiatives. What were they with respect to recognizing the credentials of foreign trained professionals?
You know, it might be very hard to recognize what we did that time compared to what is happening right now. There's a labor shortage right now. Anybody can get a job in the field they want to. But I think at that time, the biggest issue was when you come from a different country with the different qualifications, and when you come to this country, the qualification doesn't get recognized, your experience doesn't get recognized. So some of the things that we tried to do was actually made it easier for people to have their qualifications improved. You know, so we basically came up with some sort of approaches that if you take these kind of courses over a period of time, your qualification will be recognized in the field that you are. But I think the most important thing that we did was actually worked with the large corporations to give people the chance to at least work with them for a short period of time. So once they have the Canadian experience, they can work with them for 4 to 6 months, and then they can go out and look for a job. Even if this was not a permanent job, but it was like sort of a transition into the career that you wanted.
You have 2 daughters who are extremely successful in their life. You know, they're again in their academic career, they've excelled. One of them is a doctor, but now she's pursuing an MBA degree in London, in England. And your other daughter is highly accomplished, and she's a senior person with Microsoft, I believe. Describe the 2 daughters.
So both the daughters are very different. The one is actually CPA and MBA from here, and she started her career with Microsoft, and then they moved her to the US, and she has done really well. She's among their top 1% employees.
Wow.
And we are very proud of her accomplishments. I think in a very short period of time, she has achieved the position that I never achieved. She became the senior director of finance for a very large corporation. So we are very proud of her. Her husband actually works for Amazon. And the other daughter is a doctor, and she is pursuing her MBA degree now in London Business School. She was admitted to Cambridge, she was admitted to Oxford, she even had a scholarship from Cambridge, which was admitted.
What an illustrious family. You know, when you were a child growing up, coming from a small town, at that time, what was your dream?
I think actually I wanted to go to the Indian Army. That's what I wanted to do when I was growing up. Then I ended up in the bank, serving as a bank officer. I never honestly felt that whatever I achieved, that I ever dreamed about it. For me, things have fallen in place over a period of time. I always say it's a little bit of luck, a little bit of hard work, and the timing that has helped me a lot.
What would you advise young people who've come to this country, either as new immigrants or Canadians who are born here? What would you advise the youth?
I think Canada is a wonderful country, one of the best countries in the world. It has tremendous potential and tremendous opportunities for young people. If I can come from a small village and do what I did, I think anybody can accomplish anything in this country, whether they want to be in politics, they want to be in profession, or they want to be in business. The opportunities are endless.
Is it true that you actually left India with $25?
Actually, less than $25.
Wow. What an incredible story, and what a role model you are.
Yeah.
You know, you're a great inspiration for many others. God bless you and Balwinder and your family. And we would love to have you back. It's such an honor to have you in our program. And again, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for visiting us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I know I am a little bit rusted now to do these interviews.
No, you've done a super job. You know,
Yeah.
you've done a super job. You know.
Thank you.
I'm delighted that you've come back here after quite a while.
We are so proud of what you have done. I think you are actually the pioneer in your industry, but you are also pioneer for us. When I came in here in the 70s, the only show I knew was your show. Okay.
Very sweet
So
of you.
you have served this community since 1970, like it's 50 years, over 50 years now. And we are really thankful to you. I think if this community is where it is because of the efforts of the people like you, because you have contributed so much, not only to the arts and culture, but also to the media, but also the promotion of the businesses. Right? No community can succeed without the support that they can have from the media, especially the ethnic media. When we were so small, like we were hardly any people here. There was one grocery store, one gurdwara, and one temple, and one of everything. And then for you to survive in the media business at that point till now is accomplishment on its own right.
That's very kind of you.
And you have done so much for our community, and we are so proud of you.
It's very kind of you. You know, in fact, we were doing a lot more for the community. It's been somewhat limited now recently because of the extraordinary impact that internet illegal IPTV piracy has had on our business. I wish you were in the federal government, cabinet. I would have come to you and talked about the importance of perhaps changing the legislation with respect to Copyright Act and protecting, Canadian services, production companies, broadcasters across the country. It's not only us. The entire mainstream industry has been affected as well. Canada is losing about $985 million a year to the underground economy, and money is being laundered outside the country. And I wish you were in the federal cabinet now in Ottawa, because it's a federal matter. It's not a provincial matter. I think you have the intellectual capacity and the tenacity to take it forward. I wish we could find someone like you now in the cabinet.
I'm sure you're going to do that. I think at the end of the day, the government has to address this issue.
Absolutely.
If we want to protect our industry, then they have to address this issue. But I think the other thing that I didn't say before, I need to say is one of the important things that you did for, I will say, South Asian community is to bring the whole community together. Not one community, but all communities. Your program represents Tamils, the Islamic religion, the Sikh religion, the Hindu religion, like everybody. Like you served all of them well and in a very professional and great manner, honestly.
Thank you.
Like we are so proud of you that you brought the communities together rather than splitting the communities.
It's very kind of you.
Yeah.
Coming from you, we take that as a great compliment.
Yeah.
Again, God bless you and your family. Keep up the great work you're doing. Go from success to success. And we'd certainly like to do a follow-up with you. I'm sure there'll be more success coming out of you. And and congratulations on creating so many jobs in this country and in the United States as well, and giving an opportunity for so many other families to flourish through you. Again,
I mean, that is, I think, the one responsibility you have as a business people. That is not just responsibility to you, but the people that actually work for you and their
wonderful.
families.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Again, all the best.
Thank you.